and Simon, I know you've had a couple of text messages from people who are at this. It's a Premier League summit meeting. Clubs meet today. A host of topics on the agenda. The proposal, and this is one of them, the proposal that could see the number of matches shown live on TV to be increased by between 50 and 70 games in a season. Mm-hmm. So what we know is this. The next television rights deal is going to go out to tender next autumn. Options being proposed include scrapping the 3 o'clock in the afternoon blackout and bringing 4 back-to-back games live on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's quite a big change, that. 4 back-to-back, one after the other. Yep. And, of course, that would take... You're talking there about going after 6 o'clock on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So do you think the supporters would accept more televised games if it means a trade-off for that bit more inconvenience to the match-going supporter? Because he undoubtedly is going to be inconvenienced.
Because of the timing of games on Sunday evenings.
Right.
Well, yes and no. I mean, look, we've got such demand, certainly in the Premier League. We've seen it. We saw during the COVID period that the one thing that actually stood out was the absolute, ferocious appetite from people to see more and more football on television because it was something that they had such an appetite for. And what we're seeing is the next evolution of broadcast deals, they want to see an increase. It's inevitable they're going to give more games. And so when you start to move into the territory of, okay, we're moving into a situation where we're going to play games on a Sunday evening. Well, we've made so many adjustments over the years, haven't we? I mean, let's think about it. We've made adjustments. We now play Friday night games. Monday night football is a regular staple diet. It's constantly evolving. Changes have been made. The FA Cup final's been changed. Do I think it's ideal? No. Do I think it's an inevitability? Yes. Do I think certain sections of the fan base won't like it? Probably not.
But we'll live with the inconvenience.
Well, I don't think they'll get much choice because if you look at the football stadiums of the Premier League, which is predominantly the discussion that we're having about here, they're 98% occupancy, 99% occupancy, and that 1% is only because you've got to have segregation between the fans where you can't fill a stadium up to its absolute capacity because you need spaces between different sets of fans. So with that in mind, the supply and demand issue is that there is more demand than there is supply.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a situation, live is live, right? So you're never going to... This argument that was once upon a time that created watersheds around 3 o'clock and so on and so forth was based upon the argument that you took fans out of the live games. You stopped people from attending football matches because the original idea of a 3 o'clock kickoff was that the factory workers kicked out of their factories at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon and trotted off down to the local football stadium. And then it became about football broadcasting because ultimately if you broadcast at that 3 o'clock a television game, you're going to affect the live attendances. Well, that in today's society doesn't stack up anymore because you can see the demand is clearly there for live experience against televisual. So in order for the next generation of broadcast opportunities, and by broadcasting games later into the evenings on Sundays, you attract a worldwide audience that actually will pay more money for it through the overseas deals, because the overseas deals are now what are driving the increase in broadcast revenues.
You see, I think the 4 back-to-back games on a Sunday, fine, but it comes down to sensible scheduling. So don't make the 4th of the 4 games Chelsea-Newcastle. Make the 4th of the 4 games Arsenal-Fulham.
Well, you say Chelsea-Newcastle because of the geographic situation.
So that Newcastle fans don't have to turn round on full time after the final whistle of the 4th game to go back up to the northeast.
Nothing is beyond the wit of man, but then what you're suggesting is that the broadcast schedules have to absolutely entwine with the picking of fixtures as a result of the automated processes that are put into place that how fixtures are created. So you've got to put a coefficient in there, an algorithm which suggests that you've got to price into the thinking of the automated system that picks the fixture list through a digital process is now going to have an additional factor in there, which is geography. Look, nothing is beyond the wit of man. And if you can find a way, I always think in life that what you do is you find how something breaks, not how something works. We know how it works, that's why we're bloody doing it. Let's find how something breaks, and then we fix that particular problem, then the part that was already working we know is going to work. So if you know that resistance is going to form part of the thinking of the fans inside the stadium, which, by the way, make up a small percentage of the revenues that football club get, but notwithstanding that's still valuable because they're the lifeblood of a football club, then you build in the suggestion that you just said, which is maybe we build in an algorithm into the system that produces the fixture lists to factor in on specific occasions. And then, of course, what you'll have is up comes our little German friend in Liverpool about scheduling for 12:30 on Saturday afternoons, and that you open that particular Pandora's box, and then maybe you're going to be in a situation where if you cater for people's expectations of a fixture at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock on a Sunday evening, geographical situation, then why can't you do it for this and why can't you do it for that? And then all of a sudden you won't know whether you're Arthur or Martha.
Well, look, I mean, like people like your chum, like Daniel, is at the Premier League Summit meeting at the moment.
Probably asleep.
And clubs are discussing this.
Have you ever been to Premier League meetings?
So, an increase of live TV games going from between 50 to 70 games. Is that enough?
Is it enough for whom?
Is that enough? Are those enough for the TV audience?
How many
the TV
have they got
audience
currently?
would probably
260.
Why not make every game live?
Well, I've always thought that. I have always thought that. I don't think there was a saturation point. There's a demand. You don't have to watch every single game, but you should have the ability to do so if you want to.
Right.
And all that goes with it. And then, of course, you're going to have the different broadcasters getting different packages, and you're going to have the argument about which each broadcaster was charging, and so on and so forth. But I've always maintained that we're at a stage with football, and clearly we are, because again I make the pace case, albeit slightly skewed by the landscape that we lived in during a ridiculous situation and our reaction to the pandemic, was that we had this huge deluge of football. And it was the staple diet of everybody watching it, going more. And we saw that the televisual market for football was alive and vibrant. So, is it enough? How many games how many fixtures are there in a Premier League season? 380, something like that, isn't it? So now we're going to be up to if we get another 380. Yeah. We're now going to be up to something in the region of 330. So we're now going to be up to something in the region of 90% or 85%. Of all fixtures being shown.
I mean, if you're going
to go to 80% then.
Right.
If you're going to go to 80%, well, what's the downside of putting another 20% in there? But what you're doing is you're building up incrementally the deals.
Yeah.
If you give them everything now, what else have you got to give them the next raft of deals?
Okay. All right. We'll watch and see what comes out of it.
It's all about more money generation.
Whether or not this is going to be discussed is another matter. But a number of Premier League owners reportedly set to voice concerns about Everton's proposed sale to 777 partners. What's it got to do with the other 19 clubs?
No, they won't be voicing concerns. They'll be voicing an opinion. Because that's what you do.
Well, what's it going to do with them?
Because it's in their league. And it's a subject matter of interest.
Yeah, but this is
and they'll be sniggering behind their hands.
Yeah, but this lot were happy to have Abramovich. They were happy to have Mansour. They were happy to have the Saudis.
Hold on. Everybody was happy to have Abramovich up until the invasion of Ukraine. I wasn't happy because I felt it skewed the landscape. But nobody would have any foresight. Anyone suggesting that the Premier League should have seen, we might have a potential problem in 20 years because Putin's going to invade a country and cause everyone to have a real problem. No. Did
you say you weren't happy to have Abramovich?
No, of course I wasn't happy.
Publicly?
Yes. I've said it for years. I've wrote articles about it in 2005. I thought he skewed the landscape. I thought he changed the direction. I've attributed the three major changes in English football in recent times, in all times, to Sky and advancement of it all, to Roman Abramovich and Sheikh Mansour. And maybe your lot in the Saudi would be the fourth change that football has to go through because of the landscape that they're trying to create. But the point is that
this is Everton's business.
They would have embraced it. Now, everything that happens, what we do is we evolve. Media will say it's a U-turn. What you do is you learn from experiences and you change your perspective. So the Football Premier League changed its perspective after the inclusion of Abramovich. Shortly post, Mansour went, okay, we've got to get some governance. So that was a reaction to these circumstances, and that's what they do. In this situation, you'll have a bunch of football club owners, if there are football club owners there rather than their CEOs, sitting there discussing the travails of Everton with behind a sniggered hand, some of them, looking at the reality of who they've got coming in.
Would you be behind your sniggering hand?
I wouldn't care which way. I'd be too busy worrying about my own problems.
That's my point. I mean, hence, what's it going to do with them?
Well, you frame it in such a way that it's human nature. You've got one of your member clubs, because you're the Premier League, with central management, Richard Masters and his little gang, that run it for you. But the 20 members of the Premier League are effectively the constituent parts. If one of your constituent parts is going to change ownership to a group of investors that might not pass the sniff test, you're going to voice an opinion. It's human nature. You might not be concerned by it, and you might not be sticking your nose into it, and you might not be trying to block it, but you'll be busy because that's what we do. We're busy, aren't we?
I've just got this image of you at these meetings in the past, sniggering behind your hand. I bet you did plenty of that.
Well, I was sniggering at certain things. In the Football League meetings, I was snoozing.
Okay, fair enough.
That was a good opportunity to catch up with some sleep that I'd missed.
That was a roundup of football's top business stories with Tesco Mobile for Business.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.